What if I told you that failure is not the end, but the beginning of success? Most people are afraid of failure. In school, we feel bad when we get low grades. At work, we feel nervous when we make mistakes. Many people believe that failing means they are not good enough. They think failure is the opposite of success. But this idea is not true. Every successful person in history has failed many times. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. Failure is like a hidden key. When you fail, you learn lessons that help you open the door to success. Without failure, there is no growth. Without mistakes, there is no learning. Let me tell you a story about a man who was once told he had no imagination. Imagine that. Someone said he was not creative. That man's name was Walt Disney. When Walt Disney was young, he loved drawing. He believed he could make stories come alive with pictures. But when he grew up and tried to work as a cartoon artist, things were not easy. One of his first jobs was at a newspaper. He wanted to create cartoons for the paper. But after some time, his boss fired him. The reason was simple and cruel. The boss said Walt Disney was not creative enough. The boss told him he had no imagination. Can you imagine how that must have felt? Being told you have no imagination when your biggest dream is to create cartoons? For many people, that would be the end of the story. They would give up. They would think, maybe my boss is right. Maybe I am not good enough. But Walt Disney did not give up. Instead, he decided to keep going. He started his own company to make cartoons. But things went wrong again. The company did not make money, and it went bankrupt. Bankruptcy means you have no money to continue your business. Once again, Walt Disney faced failure. Still, he did not stop. He believed in his dream. He believed in his characters and his stories. After many hard years, Walt Disney created a little mouse character named Mickey. People loved Mickey Mouse. Children laughed, families were happy, and soon, Mickey became famous all around the world. But Walt Disney did not stop with Mickey Mouse. He wanted to make something bigger. He wanted to create a place where families could feel magic together. That dream became Disneyland, the first theme park of its kind. Today, millions of people visit Disneyland and Disney World every year. The Disney Company makes movies, cartoons, toys, and more. All of this grew from the dream of a man who was once told he had no imagination. Imagine if Walt Disney had listened to his boss. Imagine if he had said, "You're right. I'm not creative." We would not have Mickey Mouse. We would not have Disney movies. We would not have Disneyland. The world would be very different. The story of Walt Disney shows us that failure does not define who we are. Just because one person does not believe in you, it does not mean you are not good enough. Sometimes people cannot see your talent. Sometimes they are wrong. It also shows us that we must keep going even after we fail. Walt Disney failed many times. He lost jobs, lost money, and lost companies. But he did not lose his dream. He kept trying, and finally, his dream came true. Your failure today may also be the start of your success tomorrow. If Walt Disney had never been fired from the newspaper, maybe he would have stayed there forever. Maybe he would never have created Disney. Failure pushed him to go in a new direction, and that direction led to his greatest success. When we look at Walt Disney's story, we see something clear. Failure is not the end. Failure is the beginning. Without failure, Walt Disney would not have learned to be strong. Without failure, he would not have created new ideas. Without failure, he would not have built Disney. This is why failure is important. It teaches us lessons. It makes us stronger. It helps us find a new path when the old one is closed. So, the next time you fail, remember Walt Disney. Remember that one failure, or even many failures, do not mean your dream is dead. Failure is only a step. Each failure brings you closer to success. Think about your own life. Have you ever failed at something? Maybe you did not pass an exam. Maybe you did not get the job you wanted. Maybe someone told you that you were not good enough. How did you feel? Did you want to give up? Or did you try again? The truth is that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. Every mistake is a lesson. Every rejection is an opportunity to grow. The next time you fail, don't say, "I am not good enough." Instead, say, "I am learning. I am growing. I am getting closer to success." If Walt Disney had given up after being told he had no imagination, we would never have known Mickey Mouse. We would never have seen Disney movies. We would never have felt the magic of Disneyland. Failure did not stop Walt Disney, and failure should not stop you. When people think about success, they usually imagine a straight road, a path where everything goes well from the beginning. But real life is not like that. The road to success is full of mistakes, wrong turns, and failures. Every failure teaches something, and every mistake gives a lesson. Some of the greatest minds in history were once considered failures. They were told they were not smart enough, not good enough, or not ready for success. But they proved the world wrong. One of the most famous examples is Thomas Edison, the man who gave the world the electric light bulb. Today, when we turn on a light in our homes, we do not even think about it. It feels so simple. But in Edison's time, the idea of making light without fire was almost impossible. Edison believed he could create a bulb that gave light through electricity. But to make that dream real, he had to try thousands of times. It was not one failure, not 10, not 100, but thousands. Some people say he failed over 9,000 times before he succeeded. Others say the number was more than 10,000. Can you imagine trying something 10,000 times and failing each time? Most people would give up after 5 or 10 attempts. But not Edison. People around him thought he was crazy. Some laughed at him and said he was wasting his time. Even his workers, who helped him in the lab, sometimes lost hope. They asked him how he could continue after so many failures. Edison had a simple answer. He said, "I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that do not work." For him, every failure was not the end, but a step forward. Each time something went wrong, he learned something new. Each mistake showed him a path he should not take again. Failure was his teacher. Finally, after years of hard work, Edison found the right way. He created a light bulb that worked, and it changed the world forever. Streets became safer at night, factories could work longer, and homes were brighter. His invention shaped modern life, but it only happened because he refused to let failure stop him. Imagine if he had given up after 100 tries, or 500, or even 5,000. The world might have waited many more years for electric light. Edison's story shows us that failure is not the enemy. Failure is the teacher that brings us closer to the answer. Now, let's move to another story, the story of a boy who was considered slow and strange, but later became one of the greatest scientists in history. His name was Albert Einstein. Today, Einstein is almost a symbol of genius. When people want to say someone is very smart, they call him an Einstein. But when he was a child, people did not believe he was intelligent at all. In fact, many thought the opposite. Einstein started speaking very late compared to other children. Some people even worried that he had a learning problem. His teachers were not impressed with him. They thought he was lazy because he did not learn in the same way as other students. One teacher even told his parents that Albert would never succeed in life. Imagine hearing that as a child, that you are too slow, too strange, and that you will not achieve anything. Most children would lose hope. But Albert Einstein was different. Einstein loved asking questions. He was curious about everything. Why is the sky blue? How does light travel? What makes the stars shine? These were questions that his teachers thought were useless. But to him, they were the most important questions in the world. He often got bad grades in school because he did not like to memorize facts the way his teachers wanted. But instead of giving up, he followed his own curiosity. He studied in his own way, reading books outside of school, thinking deeply, and imagining how the universe worked. When he grew older, life was still not easy. After university, Einstein struggled to find a job. For a while, he worked in a patent office, checking other people's inventions. Many people thought that was all he would ever do. But in his free time, he kept studying and writing about physics. Then, in 1905, something amazing happened. Einstein published several scientific papers that changed the world of science forever. These papers introduced new ideas about space, time, and energy. Later, he created the famous formula E equals mc squared, which became one of the most important scientific equations in history. Albert Einstein, the boy who was once called slow, became the man who reshaped how we understand the universe. He won the Nobel Prize in Physics, and his theories are still studied by scientists today. But none of this would have happened if he had believed his teachers when they said he would never succeed. He did not let failure or rejection decide his future. Instead, he used his curiosity, his love for learning, and his mistakes to grow stronger. The stories of Thomas Edison and Albert Einstein teach us something very powerful. Mistakes are not the end. They are the beginning of learning. Edison did not see his 10,000 failed attempts as waste. He saw them as lessons. Einstein did not accept the words of his teachers who thought he was slow. He turned their doubt into determination. Both men show us that failure is not a wall that blocks us. It is a bridge that carries us forward, step by step, to success. Now think about your own life. Have you ever failed an exam and thought, I am not smart enough? Have you tried to do something many times, but it never worked, and you felt like giving up? Remember Edison. He failed thousands of times, but each failure brought him closer to success. Remember Einstein. People said he would never succeed, but he proved them wrong by following his passion. Failure is like a teacher. It shows us what does not work. It guides us to try something new. It teaches us patience, creativity, and strength. Without failure, there is no true success, because success is built on the lessons of mistakes. Every time you fail, you are not moving backward. You are moving one step closer to the answer. So, when you face failure, don't be afraid. Instead, ask yourself, what is this failure teaching me? Maybe it is teaching you to work harder. Maybe it is teaching you to try a different way. Maybe it is showing you that the path you are on is not the right one, and you must find another. Whatever the lesson, it is always useful. The light bulb in your room exists because Thomas Edison learned from thousands of failures. Our understanding of the universe exists because Albert Einstein refused to believe he was a failure. If they had given up, the world would be darker, both in light and in knowledge. Their lives remind us that failure is not a signal to stop. It is a message to continue, to adjust, to grow, and to believe in ourselves. When you fail, remember Edison. When people doubt you, remember Einstein. And when you feel lost, remember that even the greatest minds in history were once seen as failures. Success is not about never falling. Success is about rising every time you fall, learning from every mistake, and moving forward with courage. When we talk about failure, we often think of mistakes and wrong choices. But there is another kind of failure that can hurt even more. It is rejection. Rejection is when someone tells you no. It can be a teacher who says your work is not good enough, a company that does not want to hire you, or a publisher who refuses your book. Rejection feels personal. It feels like the world is telling you that your dream will never happen. But rejection is not the end of the story. In fact, rejection can be the start of something even bigger. Some of the most successful people in the world were rejected again and again before they finally reached their goals. One of the most inspiring examples is J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter books. Today, Harry Potter is one of the most famous stories in the world. The books have sold hundreds of millions of copies, The movies have been seen by millions of people, and children everywhere grow up knowing the names Harry, Hermione, and Hogwarts. But before all this success, J.K. Rowling's life was full of difficulties and rejection. She was a single mother, living in a small apartment, struggling with money. She had to take care of her baby while trying to write her book. Many days, she wrote in coffee shops because her apartment was too cold. She poured her heart into the story of a young boy who discovers he is a wizard. When she finished her manuscript, she sent it to publishers, hoping someone would see the magic in her story. But the answers she received were not yes. They were no. One publisher said children would never want to read such a long story. Another said it was not interesting enough. In total, J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers. Each rejection was like a door closing in her face. Many people would have stopped after so many rejections. They would have thought, maybe my book really isn't good enough. But Rowling did not give up. She believed in her story, even when nobody else did. Finally, one small publisher, Bloomsbury, decided to take a chance on her book. At first, they printed only 500 copies. Nobody knew what would happen, but children loved the story. Soon, parents loved it too. The book spread quickly, and within a short time, Harry Potter became a worldwide phenomenon. Imagine if Rowling had given up after the 10th rejection, or even after the 12th. The world would never have known Harry Potter. Millions of children would never have grown up with his story. Her persistence turned rejection into one of the greatest success stories in modern history. Rejection did not mean never. It only meant not yet. Another powerful example is Oprah Winfrey. Today, Oprah is one of the most famous and successful women in the world. She is a talk show host, an actress, a businesswoman, and a leader who has inspired millions of people. But her journey to success began with rejection too. Oprah was born into poverty in Mississippi. Her childhood was very hard. She faced struggles that many people cannot even imagine. But she had a dream of working in media, of telling stories, and connecting with people. As a young woman, she got a job as a news anchor on television. At first, it seemed like she was on the path to success. But things did not go as planned. The station decided she was not right for the job. They told her she was unfit for television. Imagine hearing those words when your dream is to work in TV. For many people, that would be the end. Being told you are unfit for your dream can break your heart. But Oprah did not let rejection end her journey. Instead, she looked for another way. She discovered that she had a special gift for connecting with audiences, not through news reading, but through conversations. She moved into daytime talk shows, where her warmth and honesty shined. Her program, The Oprah Winfrey Show, became one of the most popular shows in history. For 25 years, millions of people watched her show every week. She became a role model for women, for people of color, for anyone who had faced rejection and wanted to rise above it. Oprah once said, "Failure is another stepping stone to greatness." Her rejection as a news anchor pushed her to find her true strength. Without that painful rejection, she might never have become the Oprah that the world knows today. The stories of J.K. Rowling and Oprah Winfrey show us that rejection is not the end of the road. It is only a sign that you are not at the right door yet. Rejection is painful, but it does not mean your dream is impossible. It means you must keep going until you find the right opportunity. Rowling's 12th rejection could have been her last, but she believed in herself and kept trying. Oprah's painful words, "unfit for television," could have broken her, but instead, they guided her to a different path, the one that made her legendary. Think about your own life. Have you ever been rejected? Maybe you applied for a school or a job and they said no. Maybe you showed your work to someone and they did not like it. Maybe someone told you that you were not good enough. Rejection feels heavy, like a door slamming shut. But what if that door is not the right one? What if rejection is just pushing you to a better door, a door that will open when the time is right? Rejection is not failure. Rejection is a delay. It is the world saying, not now, not this way, but keep going. If you believe in your dream, then rejection is not the end. It is only part of the journey. Rowling kept writing. Oprah kept working. Both of them turned rejection into success that touched millions of lives. So the next time you face rejection, remember this. Rejection means not yet, not never. It means your story is not finished. It means there is something better waiting for you if you keep going. The people who succeed are not the ones who never hear the word no. They are the ones who hear no many times, but still believe in their yes. When we think about sports, we often imagine success. We picture athletes holding trophies, smiling on the podium, breaking world records, and becoming heroes. But what we don't always see is the long road that leads there. Behind every medal, every championship, and every victory, there are countless failures, defeats, and disappointments. Athletes are perhaps the clearest example that failure is not the end. It is the training ground for success. Take the story of Michael Jordan. Today, Michael Jordan is known as one of the greatest basketball players in history. His name is almost a synonym for excellence in sports. People call him the GOAT, the greatest of all time. But if we go back to his teenage years, the story was very different. When Michael Jordan was in high school, he tried out for the basketball team. He dreamed of wearing the team uniform, scoring points, and leading his school to victory. But when the list of players was announced, his name was not there. He was cut from the team. His coach told him he wasn't good enough. For a young teenager, that kind of rejection could destroy confidence. Jordan went home that day and cried. Imagine being told you are not good enough at the very thing you dream of doing most. Many teenagers would have given up, deciding that basketball wasn't for them. But Jordan made a different choice. He took that rejection and turned it into motivation. Instead of quitting, he trained harder. He practiced every day, shooting hoops again and again, working on his fitness, improving every detail of his game. The pain of being cut from the team pushed him to work with more passion and more discipline. Years later, he not only made the team, but he went on to become the most famous basketball player in the world. He played for the Chicago Bulls, winning 6 NBA championships, earning 5 MVP awards, and becoming a global icon. But Jordan never forgot his early failure. He once said, "I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I have lost almost 300 games. 26 times, I was trusted to take the winning shot and missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed." His words remind us that greatness is built on failure, not in spite of it. Jordan's story is powerful, but he is not the only athlete who faced failure. Serena Williams, one of the greatest tennis players of all time, also experienced defeat many times in her career. Even when she became world number 1, she lost important matches. But every loss made her stronger. She studied her mistakes, adjusted her game, and came back even better. That is why she won 23 Grand Slam titles, a record in the modern era of tennis. Lionel Messi, another legend in sports, also teaches us about failure. As a child in Argentina, Messi was very small for his age. Doctors discovered that he had a growth hormone problem. Many people thought he would never become an athlete because he was too weak and too small. His local club even refused to pay for his medical treatment. At that moment, his dream of playing professional football almost ended. But Messi did not stop. He kept playing, practicing, and proving his talent. Finally, a European team, FC Barcelona, saw his potential and helped him get the treatment he needed. From that chance, Messi grew into one of the greatest football players in history, winning the Ballon d'Or many times and inspiring millions of fans worldwide. There is also the story of athletes who lost on the biggest stage but used that loss as fuel. Think of runners who trained for years for the Olympics, only to fall during a race. Think of gymnasts who made mistakes in front of the whole world. For some, the pain of failure is too much, but for others, it becomes the reason to come back stronger. They learn discipline, patience, and mental toughness. That is why champions are not just talented. They are resilient. They rise after every fall. What connects all these stories is one truth. Even the best athletes fail. In fact, they fail more than anyone else because they try more than anyone else. They play hundreds of matches, take thousands of shots, and run endless miles. With every attempt comes the possibility of failure. But without those failures, they would never reach the level of mastery that the world celebrates. Now think about your own life. Maybe you are not a professional athlete, but you face your own challenges. Maybe you failed a test in school. Maybe you lost in a competition. Maybe you tried something new, and it didn't work. It feels painful, just like losing a big game. But athletes show us that losing is not the end. Losing is part of the training. Every mistake is practice for the future. Every loss is building your strength. Michael Jordan became the best because he missed thousands of shots. Serena Williams became a champion because she lost matches and came back stronger. Lionel Messi became a legend because he did not let his weakness stop him. And you can succeed because of your failures too. It is not about how many times you fall. It is about how many times you stand up again. So the next time you face defeat, think of Jordan crying in his room after being cut from the team. Think of Serena walking off the court after a painful loss. Think of Messi, a small boy told he was too weak for football. They did not stop, and neither should you. Your failure today is only training for your victory tomorrow. We have come a long way together. We began by asking a simple but powerful question. What if failure is not the end, but the beginning of success? We looked at the life of Walt Disney, who was told he had no imagination. We saw Thomas Edison trying thousands of times before finding the light bulb. We listened to the story of Albert Einstein, the boy who was called slow but became one of the greatest minds in history. We learned from J.K. Rowling, who was rejected again and again before Harry Potter changed the world. We remembered Oprah Winfrey, who was told she was unfit for television but became one of the most inspiring voices of her time. And we watched Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, Lionel Messi, and many other athletes turn their failures into fuel for greatness. Now it is time to bring everything together and understand the bigger picture. Why are failures important? Why should we not fear them, but welcome them? The answer is simple. Failure teaches. Failure builds strength. Failure opens new doors. Without failure, there is no real success. One of the best examples of this truth is the story of Steve Jobs, the man who helped create Apple. Today, Apple is one of the biggest and most successful companies in the world. Millions of people use iPhones, MacBooks, and other Apple products every day. But Apple's success story is not just about innovation and money. It is also about failure, rejection, and starting over. Steve Jobs co-founded Apple when he was very young. Together with his friend Steve Wozniak, he built computers in a garage. At first, nobody believed two young men could change the world of technology. But their computers started to sell, and Apple quickly grew. Jobs became the face of the company, known for his vision and creativity. Yet, in 1985, something shocking happened. The board of Apple decided that Jobs was too difficult to work with. They thought he was not the right person to lead the company. So they pushed him out of the company he had created. Imagine the pain of being fired from your own company, the place you built from nothing. For Jobs, it was devastating. At first, it felt like the end. He was embarrassed, angry, and heartbroken. But instead of giving up, he used this failure to grow. He started a new company called Next, and he also bought another company that later became Pixar. Pixar went on to create some of the most beloved animated films in history, including Toy Story. Meanwhile, Apple, without Jobs, began to struggle. Years later, the company invited him back. When Jobs returned, he brought with him all the lessons he had learned from his failures. Under his leadership, Apple created the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad. These products did not just make money. They changed how people live, work, and communicate. Steve Jobs once said, "Getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me." The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. His words show us the truth. Failure is not the end. It is the chance to begin again, this time smarter, stronger, and more creative. When we look at all these stories, we see the same lessons appear again and again. Failure teaches us. Edison learned from every experiment that didn't work. Einstein learned from every rejection and misunderstanding. Rowling learned to keep going even when the world said no. Athletes learn from every loss. And Jobs learned that failure could open the door to even greater success. Failure also builds strength. Walt Disney was strong enough to hear people say he had no imagination and still continue. Oprah was strong enough to hear she was unfit for television and still find her true path. Jordan was strong enough to hear he was not good enough for the team and still become the best. Strength is not built by easy victories. Strength is built when we face difficulties and do not give up. Failure opens new doors as well. Sometimes rejection closes one path so that another, better path can appear. If Jobs had not been fired, Pixar might never have been born. If Rowling's first publisher had said yes, maybe the book would not have been given the right attention. If Oprah had stayed in news broadcasting, perhaps she would never have discovered her gift for connecting with people through talk shows. Sometimes what feels like the end is only a new beginning in disguise. And so, what about you? What can you take from these stories into your own life? Maybe you are facing failure right now. Maybe you studied hard but still failed an exam. Maybe you applied for a job and were rejected. Maybe you tried to follow a dream, but people told you it was impossible. It hurts. It feels heavy. But remember this, you are not alone. Every great success you admire was once a failure. Every strong person you look up to once heard the word no. The difference between those who succeed and those who do not is simple. Successful people keep going. They learn from mistakes. They use rejection as motivation. They practice again and again, even after falling. They see failure not as the end, but as a step on the journey. So the next time you fail, do not be afraid. Do not think, this is the end. Instead, think, this is the beginning. I am learning. I am growing. I am becoming stronger. Every failure is a step closer to success. Every rejection is an invitation to try again. Every mistake is a lesson in disguise. Remember Walt Disney drawing Mickey Mouse after being told he had no imagination. Remember Edison smiling after his 10,000th failed attempt. Remember Rowling holding on to her manuscript after 12 rejections. Remember Jordan crying in his room, but training harder the next day. Remember Steve Jobs starting over after being fired from his own company. They are proof that failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is the path to success. So here is the final message for you. Do not be afraid to fail. Be afraid not to try. Do not let rejection end your story. Let it push you to write a better chapter. Do not see mistakes as proof that you cannot succeed. See them as lessons that will lead you to your dream. Success is not about avoiding failure. Success is about walking through failure, carrying its lessons, and turning them into strength. If you are facing failure now, hold on. This is not your end. This is your beginning. Your story is still being written, and one day, when you succeed, You will look back and thank your failures. Because without them, you would not have become who you are meant to be. Life is full of challenges. Sometimes we try our best, but things do not go as planned. We fail. We make mistakes. At first, failure can feel painful and disappointing. It can make us want to give up. But failure is not the end of the road. Failure is a step forward. Every failure teaches us something important. When we fail, we learn more about ourselves. We discover our strengths and weaknesses. We see what works and what does not. Each mistake gives us a chance to improve, to try again, and to become stronger. Failure is like a teacher guiding us toward better choices. Without failure, we cannot grow. If everything always went perfectly, we would never understand the value of patience, hard work, and persistence. We would never know the joy of reaching a goal after many struggles. Every small failure is a lesson that moves us closer to success. Sometimes, failure shows us a new path. It can open doors we did not notice before. When we try and fail, we often find better ways to do things. Failure gives us creativity, problem-solving skills, and courage. It helps us see that success is not only about winning, but also about learning and growing. Remember, failure is normal. Everyone experiences it, even if we do not always see it. What matters is how we respond. Do we give up, or do we rise again? Every time we choose to try again, we become stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the challenges ahead. So do not be afraid of failure. Embrace it as part of life. Use it as a guide, a teacher, and a friend. Keep moving forward, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself. Every failure is a step toward success. Your mistakes are not your weakness. They are your strength. Life is not about never falling. Life is about getting up every time we fall. Every time we rise after a failure, we grow closer to the life we want. Failure is not the enemy. It is a part of the journey. And the journey is what makes success meaningful.